The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hey, welcome back. This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page, part 2 of my interview, hey, I rhymed, with Terry Doran.
Thanks, Patty.
Now, last week we were, at the end of the show, we were talking about Women's Bureau and how you managed to come up with ideas and other people worked on that. Tell me more about that.
Well, the women's movement, I remember very clearly having meetings about the folk school, and a young woman named Dee Motto. Her husband was Dan Motto. He was the campus minister at IPFW. And she lived over by Lakeside Park, which would have been Kikianga way back when. And we met there, and I remember another woman was Alice Scott. And I think they were helping me get the folk school off the ground, and they were both very interested in women's issues.
Oh, yeah.
And they were pioneers themselves. And they were in touch with a lot of different women, and they were getting ideas from, different aspects of women's lives, women's issues, such as history, when they got the vote, all kinds of things, marriage, child raising, and I remember saying this is that why don't you just have a forum, have a meeting, public meeting, and put all these ideas together and invite the public? And they did that. And I'm looking now for the newspaper article. I swear that I saw the article of women sitting around on the floor, which was how a lot of folk school classes were presented or ended up. And it's also how the early Theater for Ideas, before we videotaped them, a lot of it was people sitting on the floor at different locations.
So people that were at your folk school took the same idea how to converse with each other, to do networking with each other. So you gave them basically the idea.
Yeah, I created the platform for it. There were a lot of people.
He has seeds. He seeds out mentally, verbally, and other people build on what he sows.
You're very perceptive, Patty.
Thank you.
You understand what happened as if you were there. That's what happened. You put out ideas, the sparks fly, and other people run with them.
And fire.
So the actual movement, I would say I had a hand in. The actual forming of the Women's Bureau, I did not, but it was forming the
idea,
the enthusiasm, the idea, that led to that. So I'm proud of that. And to me, that's what schooling should be. It should be an exchange of ideas, an explosion of ideas. People come together and things happen. And sometimes
other people
I wasn't even aware. I mean, the folk school just started having people do their own thing. They'd have classes, but not formal classes, but they would meet and do things.
On their own, yeah.
One of the well-known people in Fort Wayne that came out of the folk school was Karen Richards, that you both interviewed for Bob's documentary. And Karen now is prosecutor, but she said in that documentary that she became a lawyer because of the folk school, because she was not exactly a class, I'm not sure. But anyway, we had two lawyers named Hugo Martz and Max Margolis, and they were wonderful, and they did so much for the folk school. They incorporated us, they got us, I had a tax-exempt organization called Change Now, Inc. They put all that together, didn't charge.
That's nice.
And one of the things that the folk school did as it was winding down, you know, getting back to Karen, I think she was inspired by those lawyers, and that's how she decided to make a career out of law. And there are many other people. Karen was not a full-time student. There are a lot of kids that just sort of hung around the folk school.
And they learned.
Yeah, and they did things, you know, branched out on their own ideas, own directions.
Yeah.
But one of the really good stories about the folk school is this concert that we almost did. Catherine calls it the Woodstock that never was. And
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'll tell you briefly what happened and then why it's important. I came up with the idea, not of a concert, I just said we need to do something that brings all this energy together, you know, because it was sort of scattered.
Yeah.
Which was good. I mean, you know, things were just growing out of one thing into another. But pull it all together. We need something that really gives us a push. And it was kids that came up with the idea of a rock concert.
With who? Who was who?
And I couldn't tell you all the people involved, but somebody knew somebody in DeKalb County with a farm. So they said, okay, you can have your rock concert out here. Then other people started contacting bands. Bob Hanauer, who's back in town after living in Wisconsin for a long time. Bob was a full-time student at the folk school.
He's here in Fort Wayne?
Yeah, he's in Fort Wayne now.
Should look him up.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he says the folk school saved his life. He went to Northrop High School. I hope Bob can tell his own story, but he had a rough time, especially with his father. Grew up on a farm. And he was in the hallway at Northrop. Again, no cell phones, no internet, nothing
Yeah, what did they do in
no
those days? No
computers.
cell phones.
He used his last dime to call the folk school from a payphone in the hallway at Northrop High School. And they're probably not even a payphone in Fort Wayne anymore.
Yeah.
There might be one in the courthouse. There was a couple years ago, I don't know. But anyway, and then Bob became a fixture, and Bob worked on a stage, building the stage for the concert.
Nice.
It was a big deal. And then the law stepped in.
Oh,
I got a summons from the sheriff of DeKalb County and his deputy. It was like Andy and Barney from the Andy Griffith Show. Andy Taylor Show. Well, it was an Andy Griffith
Andy
Show.
Griffith,
His
yeah.
character is Andy Taylor.
yeah.
That sheriff, though, was friendly. He was nice to me. He just said, you know, we can't allow this to happen. There's going to be bad elements. There's going to be bad people there.
Yeah, they're worried
There's liable
about
to be
that.
drugs,
Yeah.
underage drinking.
Yeah.
Things, I was naive back then. I didn't think of things like that, and I should have. Or at least if I thought of them, I didn't give them enough emphasis. But he had a point. It seemed like we had things in place to deal with it. that different people had come up with ideas and so forth. But he said you can't have it.
Yeah.
So then Bob Hanauer, the student I just mentioned, he was, we were up in our office. At that time we had an office on the second floor across from the city county building on Calhoun Street, right by Rigo's Tobacco Shop.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And yeah. And Jim Getch of Friends of Third World, that is now such a good sponsor of track, that's sponsoring the, on the other show we talked about Riverdrums, Three Rivers Art Center for Kids.
Yes, which we are, track.
They are our Pisco sponsor, so we can apply for grants and so forth. And should give credit to PNC Bank and the other show, I didn't mention that, and the Cable Fund Access Board, they both have given us grants for Riverdrums this year, so thank you to them. And we were up in the office, and Robert Bender, he then was the sheriff of Allen County, big guy. He came up there. Bob and I were there, and one of the lawyers, I think it was Hugo, but one of them for sure happened to be there. Why, I don't remember. Maybe we knew we were going to get a visit from the sheriff, and I asked him to be there. It must have been something like that. Otherwise, I don't know why he would have been there. But anyway, he was, and Bender came up. He said, he used foul language, so I won't say what he said on your show, but
oh, good, thank you.
I let you imagine. He said, look at this office, it's a pigsty, and he knocked everything on the desk onto the floor.
Why did he do that?
Because he really didn't like me. I was a threat to the establishment, and he knocked it all on the floor. And
that's not
he's a good friend with Bob Hanauer's father. Amazing. So, and he threatened to throw me down the steps. And I think he would have. He looked up and he saw the lawyer. I think the lawyer was dressed in a suit. And he said something to the effect of, you should be ashamed of yourself. Said that to the lawyer for helping these lowlives here. Yeah. So then we had an injunction. I got served an injunction to stop it. That's a legal paper that stops it.
School?
Then I had a subpoena to appear in court.
Oh, man.
There was a court hearing in DeKalb County. The lawyers represented us there. You can imagine I had long hair and a beard.
Oh, boy.
We were not an establishment-looking group. So.
See, that's it. Long hair and a beard, and people think they're bad things about them.
Yeah, we were threatening to them, and they ruled. That judge ruled against us. He upheld the injunction, and so I say. And then at the actual event, the night of the event, it was going to be a day-long into the night event. There were, I don't know, I was told, dozen state police cars with roadblocks set up.
Oh my goodness.
Other, regular policemen. I mean, and they told me, if you show up there, we will arrest you on sight. So I didn't go. And that's the Woodstock that almost was, but never was. And who knows what would have happened if it had happened.
You must have had a lot of bands lined up.
I think there was. I mean, these kids did it all, and that's the story. You let kids, you let them loose, and you let them to their own devices, and I can't say that in every instance they'll come up with good things. But in the folk school, they did.
Yeah, human beings are human beings, no matter what the young.
Well, they were given respect.
We
trust you. You're competent to do this.
Yeah.
And
they tried, even though the adults didn't like it.
Bob remembers things that I don't. I was at his house not too long ago, and you know, he remembers like building that stage. Maybe I didn't even know they were building it. I mean, somebody had that. You had to have a stage somewhere.
Yeah,
this was a magazine we put out. This was the very first one, and in there it spells out a lot of the folk school philosophy. There's a review I wrote of a book about the Danish folk schools. There's a calendar of events coming in there. So that's another thing. We put out this little magazine called Return to Learning. And
50 cents a copy, eh? Wow. Even those
what amazes me is how all that happened with no computers. I mean, I had to type all this stuff on a Smith Corona portable typewriter. All that magazine, every word in there,
and you had to photocopy it?
I had to photocopy it, and we had some kind of a printer. I don't know how we did it.
That's well done. I like it.
The very last issue is in color because Michael Allen Snyder, another good friend who died at an early age, only in his 40s.
I'm sorry.
He
was it a printer?
He did the last issue and it was in color. This, by the way, is an article. Michael is the editor of the Communicator. He's the one who named IPFW, Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne. So you can see a front page of the Communicator down there during Mark's anniversary of his firing. That's Michael Allen Snyder wrote that article. And he drew the picture of me.
1975.
Isn't that a good picture? I love that.
Oh, it's a nice picture. Can you see it? Yeah. It's a good picture. You take photographs pretty good.
It's a beautiful drawing. There are a lot of drawings back then. This was, you know, I have a scrapbook. Here is the cover of the scrapbook. This is, I show this because there's just an explosion of creativity in the folk school.
And where did these kids, besides the folk school and the women's bureau, what other have you started with your seeds, so to speak?
Well, we started the public access television. The early Theater for Ideas were...
You're one of the first?
The very early ones were not videotaped at all. And people who attended those still think that it was a shame that we got cameras going. Maybe it was, who knows. But, you know, videotaping added a dimension, obviously. They're there forever, if you can find them. And the tape doesn't
What year did you start
wear out. I think we probably did the first Theater for Ideas about... It was during the folk school, 73, 74.
Oh, wow.
It was about Jefferson Airplane appearing at the Coliseum. I remember that.
I was in my early 20s when that was going down, eh?
That was the very first Theater for Ideas. It was in an old building called the Alton Coffee House, which was right down there by Jim Getch's. We're there at 611 West Wayne now. Roof leak, didn't have any heat. It was a classic. We also did Theater for Ideas in the parlor of the Broadway Church on Broadway. We also did them at the auditorium of the old art school. Wow. See, back then, there's just like that art school. There was a school called Fort Wayne Art School. It was on Rock Hill and it was in West Central. And it had a charm all of its own. Now, the building is still there, but it had an auditorium in it, and Russell Edel, who was the director of the art school, liked Theater for Ideas, and we did a lot of Theater for Ideas in there. So we did them all over the place. We started taping maybe 75, and those tapes, those shows aired at a little cable company called Citizens Cable in New Haven. Now, this is Fort Wayne history. John Bonzib was a businessman. He ran Citizens Cable. He then put in a franchise bid. You know, the cable in Fort Wayne was very lucrative. It had a lot of competition to get the franchise. Bonson made a big deal out of community access television. And what did he have for the example? Theater for Ideas.
You bet.
So he got the franchise. It opened in 1981, public access television, now called Access Fort Wayne. For a long time it was just known as Channel 10, because that was the channel it aired on the cable network. And now it went to a higher, like it's on 55, it doesn't have the same ring, you know.
It's got 25, channel 25, 55.
Channel, yeah. So anyway,
And
they had at that time built a new wing onto the library, and in January 1981, Theater for Ideas did the very first show on Fort Wayne public access television called Rock and Roll, Friend or Foe, which is similar theme to the Jefferson Airplane. That was controversial. People were saying they shouldn't be allowed to perform, and so that was the very first Theater for Ideas. That was funded by the Indiana Humanities Council and the cable company. They had a matching grant for that. We did 52 one-hour live shows.
1 hour? Wow.
1 hour live, every one of them.
One
live.
a week?
And that reminds me, so that's how cable access in Fort Wayne started, through Theater for Ideas and airing on this little channel in New Haven, Indiana, called Citizens Cable.
Wow. Then you branched out to the library.
Yeah, and Bill Makeley, who now lives in Perth, Australia, he was our videotape guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's from Lime, Ohio, but he'd come from New York. Let me hold up one more article here, because in 1981, you can hold it up, Win Moses was the mayor. And the reason I'm holding this article up, first of all, it speaks to my pioneer days. You know, Graham Richard called Theater for Ideas a pioneering grassroots, I forget how he said it, but he used the word pioneer in it. Graham was former mayor before Tom Henry. Keep it.
I got it.
Oh, you get it? Okay, well, if you saw the article there, it said Win Moses claims I&M abuses. The reason I picked that one out is Win at that time was a member of city council. I read where he was taking on I&M.
What's I&M?
The big polluting corporation. Still in Fort Wayne. Well, at that time there were two utility companies, I&M and City Light. City Light was owned by the city. Well, I&M didn't want the competition. They were the big guys, and they wanted to buy City Light and get rid of the competition. City Light, by the way, was in that building where Science Central now.
Oh,
yeah.
big building.
So Science Central did a great thing, converting that into a really interesting, dynamic facility in Fort Wayne. Anyway, that was City Light, and I&M wanted to buy it, and they offered $500,000.
It's a lot in those days.
And when Moses said, "Are you kidding? This will be profit every year forever." That is, you know, ridiculous offer. So they ended up suing Moses for $5 million.
Oh no.
I don't think he had to pay anything. But the reason you asked about other things that Theater for Ideas led to, well, Women's Bureau, the public access television, and recently Wynn contacted me and said, Do you have any of those stories about with the show we did together, and he's writing a book or somebody's writing it for him? He wants to trace how his battle with I&M led directly to this riverfront development that we've been talking about on your other show,
Yeah.
previous show we did. And riverfront development is funded by money that the city got from I&M, which ended up being, drum roll please, $39 million with a starting bid of $500,000.
Is that all?
So you have Win Moses to thank for that. He's
Oh, my
gracious enough to give me some credit because I did the show that was
That
written
started
up
the whole
in the
thing.
article. He'll be
Nice.
thrilled. I just found this scrapbook, and
He'll love to see that.
but that's another example of just ideas, sparks flying, and again, this is Wynn's thing. A lot of this stuff. John Bonzov obviously deserves a ton of credit for public access. A lot of women, Dee Ellis, for the Women's Bureau. It's just that folk school and me sort of was in the middle of a lot of this stuff.
You were the one that really started little branches going off.
Yeah, it's the little branches. I certainly had, I didn't contact I&M or try to get them to buy it, but I saw something I thought worth attention, and you don't see city councilmen sticking their necks out very often like that. So that's why I did the show with Win Moses, and then later, but in the same vein, when I was running the Loft on Broadway, Justin Blessing, a young artist, had a mental illness, died tragically. I've known his family for a long time, his father Tom. Did a show about him at the Loft. He was a great artist for his age, maybe any age.
Well,
Won an award when he was in high school. Anyway, that show helped lead to the forming of the Carriage House, which you've, I think, done a show with them. It's a meeting place for emotionally troubled adults.
So, the Carriage House is here in Fort Wayne, and they have other places throughout this country, and they're helping many people. So this is towards the end of the show, and just a reminder, Riverdrums 2017, May 28th, 2017, at Rothschild Pavilion at Headwaters Park. So, thank you. So, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page, and my guest, Terry Doran. Thank you so much for coming.
Fabulous. Thank you, Patty.
And we will have him on our show some other time. So, thank you, Terry, and this is goodbye. See you next week.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us all.